Let me ask you something. Have you ever looked in the mirror, really look it and whisper to yourself, I can't do this anymore? Not because you're weak, not because you're lazy, but because somewhere along the way people stopped seeing you as a person and started seeing you as a tool. You became the helper, the fixer, the one who always picks up the pieces. You became the one who says yes when your heart screams no. And now you're sitting here wondering when exactly your needs became optional in your own life. Let me tell you a story. There was a woman I met once a few years ago during a training I was teaching. She looked sharp, tough, confident on the outside. She had the job, the education, the family, everything that, on paper, looks together. But something was off. After class, she pulled me aside, her voice cracked. And she said, Evy, everyone depends on me. Everyone takes from me. But no one ever asks if I'm okay. I don't think they even see me anymore. That broke me. Because I've been there, and maybe so have you. This is for the ones who keep showing up, even when they're breaking inside. This is for the ones who give and give until there's nothing left but a shadow of who they used to be. This is your wake-up call. It's time to stop being used. Let's talk about how. You teach people how to treat you. If I asked you right now, how do you let people treat you? What would your answer be? Not what you want to believe, not what you hope is true, but really when you look at your life, your relationships, your patterns, how are you letting people treat you? Because here's the truth most people don't want to hear. You don't get what you deserve. You get what you allow. You get what you settle for. You get what you continuously tolerate and make excuses for. And every time you let someone cross the line without consequence, every time you let a snide remark slide, let someone guilt you into a yes, let someone cancel on you, lie to you, take from you without reciprocation, you're writing the instruction manual for how people get to treat you. You're telling them without even saying a word, this is okay with me. I learned this the hard way. When I was working in law enforcement, especially as a woman in a male-dominated environment, I felt this unrelenting pressure to prove myself. I believed if I just worked harder, stayed longer, did more, they would see me. They would respect me. So I went above and beyond all the time. I said yes to everything. I handled what others avoided. I took pride in being dependable. But that pride cost me. I remember one night had barely eaten all day, had pulled a long shift, and hadn't slept in almost 24 hours. My body was screaming at me to slow down. But I didn't, because somewhere deep inside, I had equated exhaustion with value. I thought if I just kept, eventually someone would say, wow, you're doing amazing. Take a break. We've got you. But that day never came. Instead, I passed out in the hallway, just collapsed. I woke up on the cold floor with a couple of people staring at me, waiting for me to move so they could walk past. No thank you, no concern. Just the machine, still moving. And I remember lying there thinking, this is what happens when you try to be everything for everyone but forget to be something to yourself. That day, I made a quiet promise to myself. Never again would I give more to others than I was willing to give to myself. You see, people don't learn how to treat you by listening to your words. They learn by watching your patterns. They watch how you react when they cancel last minute, when they insult you with a smile, when they ask for favors but never return them. They watch how quickly you say yes even when you mean no. They watch how fast you rush to fix everything, even when no one shows up for you. And the ones who benefit from your lack of boundaries, they'll never tell you to stop because your self-sacrifice serves them. It keeps them comfortable. It keeps them in control. So if you want to change how people treat you, you have to change what you allow. You have to stop explaining away bad behavior. You have to stop rewarding inconsistency with loyalty. You have to stop betraying yourself in the name of beingness. A being kind is not the same as being a doormat. You can be loving and still have limits. You can be generous without being depleted. You can be supportive without being someone else's emotional crutch. Boundaries are not punishments. They are declarations of self-worth. It took me years to understand that saying, I deserve better means nothing if your actions don't align. You can post all the quotes. You can talk all the talk. But until you enforce those boundaries, until you show people what is and isn't acceptable, you'll keep ending up in the same cycles with the same people, wondering why nothing's changing. Change begins with one word, no. No to disrespect. No to guilt trips. No to relationships that only take. No to environments that drain you. Because the truth is, people will always test the waters. That's just human nature. But you get to decide the temperature. You get to decide what's too far. And you get to decide when enough is finally enough. You are not here to be used. You are here to be honored. And that starts the moment you remember this powerful truth. You teach people how to treat you. Stop earning love you already deserve. Somewhere along the way you learned a lie. Maybe it was from a parent who only showed affection when you achieved something. Maybe it was a partner who made love feel like a transaction. Maybe it was a friend who disappeared the moment you stopped playing their emotional caretaker. Wherever it came from, the message embedded itself deep inside. A love must be earned. And so you did. You tried to be everything for everyone. You said the right things, wore the right mask, bit your tongue, smiled through the pain. Because if you could just be enough, good enough, smart enough, pretty enough, useful enough, then maybe, just maybe, they'd finally love you the way you needed to be loved. But let me ask you something. How many times have you twisted yourself into someone unrecognizable just to be accepted? How many times have you given pieces of yourself away just to keep a seat at someone else's table? And when you look in the mirror, do you even recognize the person staring back? There's a quiet kind of agony in always having to earn love. It wears you down. It creates this constant knowing fear that if you ever stopped performing, people would leave. That if you show them the real you, the messy, hurting, unfinished, raw version, they'd walk away. And some will. Let them? Because here's the truth. Love that needs to be earned isn't love. It's control. It's approval wrapped in conditions. It's a leash disguised as a hug. I remember a moment. I was standing in front of someone I had loved for years. Someone I had given everything to. I had done all the right things. I had bent, shifted, sacrificed, stayed silent just to keep the peace. And they still looked at me with cold eyes and said, I just don't feel it anymore. As if love was a switch they could flip off once I stopped being useful. That moment shattered me, but it also set me free. Because it made me ask the question, what am I doing? Why am I trying so hard to prove to someone else that I'm worthy of love when I don't even believe it myself? That was the turning point. I realized I had been outsourcing my value, waiting for other people to give me permission to feel lovable. And the truth is, no one can give that to you. You either own your worth or you rent it from others. And rent is due every day. So many of us are running ourselves into the ground trying to be chosen. But real love doesn't make you audition. Real love doesn't ask you to shrink or perform. Real love sees you flaws and all and still chooses you. The moment you stop casing people who withhold affection as a weapon, your entire world shifts. You stop settling for crumbs because you finally believe you deserve the whole damn meal. I had to sit with myself, really sit, and confront the parts of me that still thought love was conditional. I had to unlearn everything I had been taught. That being too much made me hard to love. That saying no made me selfish. That prioritizing myself meant I was cold. None of that was true. It was just the conditioning of someone who had been taught love was something you had to earn through self-abandonment. You don't have to explain your value. You don't have to justify your presence. You don't have to earn your way into someone's life by becoming a version of yourself that makes them comfortable. Let them feel uncomfortable. Let them walk away if they need to. Because the people who truly love you, the people who see your worth without a presentation or performance, those are the ones you build your life around. Not the ones who only show up when you're doing something for them. Not the ones who disappear the moment you say, "This is what I need." The ones who matter won't need a show. They'll want your truth. You were born worthy. Not when you lost the weight, not when you got the promotion, not when you said yes to everything. Right now, as you are, your worth is not in how useful you are to others. Your worth is in your being, your breath, your soul, your essence. So stop trying to earn love. You already deserve it. You are not their dumping ground. You ever notice how some people always seem to show up with a storm and leave you soaking wet? Like your phone only rings when they're falling apart. Like your door only gets knocked on when they need a place to unload. You become their emotional emergency room. Always on call, always expected to listen, fix, soothe, heal. And yet when you're the one bleeding, when your world is falling apart, silence. You don't hear from them. They vanish. They're busy. They tell you to hang in there and change the subject because your value to them isn't in your presence. It's in your utility. That's not compassion. That's exploitation. And I know you might say, but I'm a good person. I don't want to turn my back on someone in pain. I hear you. But let me say this as clearly as I can. You are not a landfill for other people's unprocessed emotions. You are not their dumping ground. There is a difference between support and sacrifice. One uplifts, the other erases, and for too long, maybe you've confused the two. I get it. I used to be that person too. I'd answer every call day or night. I'd listen to the same stories on repeat, the same crisis with no change. I thought I was helping. I thought I was strong. But eventually I started to feel hollow, tired, used, like my soul was being siphoned off in pieces. And I realized something gut-wrenching. This wasn't strength. This was self-betrayal. Being kind does not mean being consumed. Sometimes the most powerful act of love, both for yourself and for them, is to say, "Numb, I will not carry this for you." Because when you always absorb someone else's emotional chaos, you rob them of the opportunity to grow, to take responsibility, to do the hard work of healing. You become their escape hatch, their safety net, their excuse not to change. And what happens to you? You carry their weight while your own needs go unmet. You become so busy managing other people's crises that you never look at your own. You never rest, you never breathe. You become a permanent caretaker in someone else's mess. That's not a life, that's a present. And here's the hard truth. Some people are addicted to the drama, to the pain, to the cycle of chaos. They don't want healing, they want attention, they want to feel important. And if you keep catching their emotional grenades, they'll keep throwing them because it works. You are not obligated to be someone's therapist just because they refuse to get one. You are not responsible for managing someone's pain just because you love them. Love does not require you to bleed for someone else's wounds. Start paying attention to the energy in your relationships. Do you feel safe, seen? Or do you feel drained, like you're constantly being pulled into other people's storms? Are you allowed to have needs? Or are you only valuable when you're fixing someone else? I want you to hear this loud and clear. You are allowed to protect your peace. You are allowed to walk away from conversations that leave you broken. You are allowed to say, "I cannot hold this for you." It doesn't make you cold. It doesn't make you selfish. It makes you aware. We all have our own mountains to climb, and you can't summit yours if you're constantly being dragged into someone else's valley. You can't fulfill your purpose if you're always carrying baggage that was never yours to begin with. Sometimes the most loving thing you can say is, "I see you, I care about you, but I cannot be the one to carry this anymore." Let people carry their own weight. You are not their garbage can. You are not their fixer. You are not the space where broken people go to avoid putting themselves back together. You are a human being. You deserve reciprocity. You deserve rest. You deserve relationships that pour back into you the way you pour into them. So the next time someone shows up with their storm, ask yourself, is this a two-way street, or am I the only one standing in the rain? Because love without balance isn't love. It's a transaction, and your soul is not for sale. You are not their dumping ground. Saying no is a complete sentence. Let's talk about the single most powerful, liberating, life-changing word you can learn to say no. Not no, I'm sorry, leader. Not no, unless you really need me. You just know. Full stop, period. And yet for so many of us, that tiny word feels like the heaviest one to carry. We stumble around it, cushion it with apologies, soften it so much that it loses its shape entirely. Why? Because we've been conditioned to believe that our value lies in our whys. That being like means being available. That love requires constant agreement. Let me tell you something, people who benefit from your lack of boundaries will always be uncomfortable when you grow a spine. Let them be. Because every time you say yes when you mean no, you are building a life that betrays you. I remember when I first started saying no. It was terrifying. It felt like I was tearing something apart. Relationships, trust, connection. But what I was really tearing apart was the illusion that I owed everyone everything. The illusion that I was only worthy if I was constantly available. And let me be honest, it wasn't easy. The people who were used to my constant yes did not applaud when I changed. They called me selfish, cold, difficult. But what they were really saying was, "You're no longer giving me control over your life." Exactly. When you start saying no, people will show you who they are. Some will get angry. Some will guilt you. Some will disappear altogether. And that's okay, because what you're doing isn't rejection. rejection. It's refinement. You're clearing space. You're making room for people who respect your no just as much as they enjoy your yes. Saying no doesn't make you cruel. It makes you clear. It means you finally decided that your needs, your time, your peace matter too. And that shouldn't feel radical, but for many of us it is. Especially for those of us who were raised to be pleasers, who were told to be agreeable, helpful, quiet, who learned early on that love was something you earned through obedience and sacrifice. But here's the thing, you don't owe anyone your compliance. You don't owe anyone your silence. You don't owe anyone a version of yourself that keeps shrinking just to keep the peace. If someone only values you when you're saying yes, they don't value you. They value your usefulness. That's not love. That's convenience. I used to worry that saying no would make me lose people. What I didn't realize was I was already lost. In relationships that drained me, in commitments that crushed me, in expectations that were never mine to carry. So I started saying it. No, I won't take that call at midnight. No, I won't be available every time you need to vent. No, I won't rearrange my life to make you more comfortable. And something incredible happened. I didn't lose myself anymore. Sometimes the most radical act of self-love is choosing your peace over someone else's comfort. Because not everyone deserves unlimited access to you. Not everyone has earned your energy, your time, your heart. You are allowed to say no to protect yourself, to rest, to heal, to dream, to breathe. You don't have to justify your no. You don't need a detailed explanation. You don't need permission. No is a boundary. No is a declaration. No is a mirror that reflects back whether someone truly honors who you are or just what you offer. So say it, say no. Say it without guilt, without shame, without a 5-minute monologue about why. Say no when it means saving your energy. Say no when it means honoring your truth. Say no when it's the only thing standing between you and burnout, between you and regret, between you and your authentic life. Watch who respects it. Watch who listens, who pauses, who leans in and doesn't flinch. That's how you find your tribe. The people who stay, those are your people. Everyone else, they were just passengers on a ride that was never meant to last. You are not here to be agreeable. You are here to be whole. And wholeness starts with a simple word, no. Stop shrinking to fit rooms you've outgrown. There is a quiet kind of suffering that most people carry like a secret. It doesn't scream. It doesn't make noise, but it's heavy. It's the pain of staying too long in a place that no longer fits you. A relationship, a job, a friendship, a version of yourself. You keep showing up pretending it still feels right when deep down you know you've outgrown it. And instead of walking out, you shrink. You get smaller to fit. You laugh a little less loudly. You question yourself more often. You start second-guessing your instincts, your dreams, your voice. You dim your light so others can shine. You settle for crumbs and call it love. You accept just enough and convince yourself it's all you deserve. I know that feeling. I've lived in rooms like that, metaphorically and literally. I've sat in meetings at tables in relationships where I knew I didn't belong anymore, where my spirit had evolved, but the space demanded I stay the same, where growth felt like rebellion. And to stay included, to keep the peace, I kept myself small. But here's the truth. No one tells you peace that costs your power is far too expensive. You cannot keep sacrificing yourself to make other people comfortable. You cannot keep betraying your evolution to preserve connections you've already outgrown. That's not loyalty. That's self-abandonment. You are not who you were 5 years ago. You're not even who you were 5 months ago. And that's not a problem. It's a miracle. Growth is messy. It's uncomfortable. It disrupts. But that's the price of becoming. You're shedding the version of you that tolerated less than you deserved, that silenced yourself just to be liked. That played small because you were afraid of being too much. And when you finally rise, when you stop apologizing, when you speak truth, when you step into your power, don't be surprised if people flinch, if they look at you like a stranger. If they pull away, you see when you stop shrinking, some people won't recognize you anymore. Not because you've changed in a bad way, but because they were never truly seeing you to begin with. They were seeing the version of you that made their life easier. You don't owe anyone the old version of you just to keep their comfort intact. Growth will cost you people. Let it. It might cost you approval, fitting in, being liked. Let it, because what you gain in return is worth far more. Your freedom, your voice, your energy, your life back. I know the fear. I know what it feels like to stand on the edge of change and wonder. What if I leave and I end up away? What if I speak up and they walk away? But let me tell you something I've learned the hard way. Loneliness is not being alone. Loneliness is being surrounded by people who don't really see you and staying anyway. You weren't born to play small. You weren't born to be background noise in someone else's story. You weren't born to shrink yourself into a version that fits someone else's expectations. You were born to rise. You were born to take up space, to evolve, to be loud when necessary, to be bold, to be brave, to be uncomfortable in the pursuit of your fullest potential. And no one has the right to ask you to dial that down. So if you feel the pull, that subtle discomfort that whispers you don't belong here anymore, listen to it. That's your soul nudging you forward. That's your future self saying, there's more waiting. Don't stay here just because it's familiar. The world will try to keep you small. It will reward your silence. It will praise your sacrifice, but you don't owe it your stillness. You owe yourself your becoming. So stop squeezing yourself into spaces that don't fit. Stop apologizing for your ambition. Stop hiding the parts of you that were meant to shine. It's okay to walk away from the rooms, the people, the patterns that no longer align with who you are becoming, because you are not here to shrink. You are here to rise. Reclaim your voice, reclaim your life. This right here is where everything begins to shift, because no real change, no lasting freedom, no deep transformation ever happens until you reclaim your voice. I'm not talking about the voice you've been using to keep the peace. The one you've trained to be agreeable, to avoid conflict, to be liked. Not the voice you use to smile through pain, to nod even when you disagree, to say yes when your soul is screaming no. I'm talking about your real voice. The voice that says enough. The voice that rises up from the truth inside you. The truth you've been swallowing for years. The truth that has been quietly building strength in your silence. The truth that has had enough of being polite when it should be powerful. That voice is your liberation. When you reclaim your voice, you reclaim your boundaries, your time, your energy, your future. Because your voice isn't how you speak, it's how you live. It's how you move through the world. It's how you let people know, I am not here to be used. I am not here to be silenced. I am not here to play small. But let's be honest, reclaiming your voice takes guts. It takes clarity. It takes conviction. Because the moment you start using it, you'll feel the friction. People will push back. Some will get angry. Some will fall away. And it'll hurt because they were attached to your silence. They were comfortable with your compliance. They relied on the fact that you'd always say yes, that you'd always take it, that you'd never stand up. But here's the truth, your silence was never saving you. It was slowly erasing you. Every time you held your tongue to avoid confrontation, every time you bit your lip instead of speaking truth, every time you smiled when you wanted to scream, you weren't beingness. You were abandoning yourself. That ends now. Because you're not broken, you were never broken. You were buried. Buried under expectations, buried under fear, buried under the false belief that your voice didn't matter, that your needs came second. That speaking up made you difficult or dramatic or demanding. But here's what you need to know: the moment you stop asking for permission to exist fully, the world has no choice but to adjust. People will meet you at the level you meet yourself. You don't need to beg for scraps. You don't need to chase love. You don't need to earn basic respect. You are already worthy. You are already enough. And when you begin to live like you believe that, you stop accepting anything less. This is the shift. The shift from passive to powerful, from invisible to undeniable, from silence to strength. It's not about yelling to be heard. It's about no longer whispering your truth. It's about speaking with grounded certainty. It's about showing up in your full voice unapologetically and saying, this is who I am. This is what I stand for. This is what I will no longer allow. And when you do that, you start living from your center, not from fear, not from need, not from past wounds, but from truth. That's when everything starts to change. You begin to attract different people. People who aren't intimidated by your strength, but inspired by it. People who don't need you to shrink so they can feel tall. People who respect your no and honor your yes. Your life starts to reflect the power you've always had but were too afraid to claim. This isn't just about using your voice to stand up to others. This is about using it to stand up for yourself. You get one life, one shot to stop playing the supporting role in your own story and step fully into the lead. So say what needs to be said, draw the lines that need to be drawn, walk away from what needs to end. Name your needs, honor your truth. Stand in your power. Because when you reclaim your voice, you don't just speak louder, you live bolder. And what's waiting for you on the other side of your silence? Freedom, clarity, peace, power. You've waited long enough, it's time to rise.